All right. Welcome back to another episode of Totally Clutch. I'm your host, Angie Veman with Clutch Businesses, and today we're talking a little out of our wheelhouse. Um, not familiar territory for this particular podcast or vlog, but still super important and super interesting and super fun topic of conversation. So we're going to be hearing from modern matchmaker Abby Rosenblum, and she helps busy professionals find real love. And you might be asking, if you're anything like me, like, what the heck does this have to do with business at all? Well, what I've found, and maybe some of you have found, that if your love life is a mess, and I'm sure that Abby would say something a little bit more delicate and hopeful, but if your love life is a mess, your business is likely suffering in some way. So distraction, self-doubt, lack of support can all creep in if you're in a mismatched partnership. And this is not meant to be doom and gloom, but we are going to talk about all of the, I guess what's happening in dating, how you can find a good match, and more importantly, like what does being in a great partnership, what are all the positive things that it brings to your life and to your business. So with that, will welcome Abby to the show. Welcome, Abby.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited
Yeah.
to change the topic a little bit here and talk about
Yeah,
love.
totally. I mean, love, we all love talking about it, right? We all love to either commiserate about it or, glow and, just talk about how wonderful it is.
I hope so. I know for some people it can, be a little touchy subject these days,
Yeah.
but we'll tread lightly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And these days is probably a good thing to say too. So, what's I guess let's get there. First, tell us about yourself, like your background, how you came to do the work that you're doing now.
Yeah, so my background is not, that I was born to be a matchmaker. I can't say I've been doing this my entire life. I actually started off working in TV, and my background is in journalism. And I was dating a ton. I probably went on, 75, some amazing and some horrific dates in a, summer to fall time period. I ended up meeting my husband through that saga, but realized watching all my friends do similar things that, you know, why isn't there a better way to meet people? Everyone just thinks, okay, let's go on dating apps, but what about, having someone actually, screen people for you, set up your dates, background check people, and just hopefully make your life a whole lot easier and to make dating a bit more fun. So the business was born. I put up a website. I had an Excel spreadsheet. It has evolved a lot since then, 4 years ago. And, now we get to have a whole team of people, looking out for single people and setting you up. So, our whole thing is setting up blind dates and hosting singles events. We work with people in Colorado and beyond. And, it's all about, people looking for a serious relationship who, have it together in terms of their career and finances, are passionate about something in life, and just want to meet the right person to share their life with.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great and really powerful work. And I think I was reading this on your website too, that I think an important thing to note in all of this is that this kind of work has been done for hundreds of years. So there's a real history and legacy in what you're doing, right?
Right. Yeah, this is nothing new. I am not, some genius inventor of this concept. This has been around in small communities all over. Matchmaking is prevalent in, more religious communities because people, want to date within that community, or certain cultural communities. Since there's a local matchmaker, but kind of doing it for the masses, I would say is a generally new thing. And I think there's still people I meet every day who have never heard of a matchmaker or would never have thought of reaching out to me. And I just kind of happened into their life, and now they're here.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Like, not thinking about the option of doing that, right, is I think a huge barrier for a lot of, like, I would never, I mean, I think maybe, I don't know, several years ago, at one point, I had thought about it only because somebody had kind of offered that up, or not offered it, but showed me that that was an option, but it's not anything that would have crossed my mind otherwise.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting thing too, is, I do get the people who are actively reaching out to me saying, they're seeking this out. But a lot of the times it's me searching for great candidates and they're like, well, what even is this? I didn't never even heard of it. So, it's kind of fun to explain to people that, yeah, you don't have to just swipe through Tinder all day. You could
Yeah.
actually like go do things you enjoy and I'll just find great people for you.
Yeah.
So, it's like when you put it that way, it's a no brainer. But,
Totally.
for a lot of people, it's hard to admit that they might want some help in that category or need some help in the dating category.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing too. I mean, right, whether it's finding, I guess, dating, finding people to date, finding a good match, or even just like how to show up in love. Like that's just not, we don't spend a lot of time talking about that or learning about that as we're growing up. We spend a lot of time learning math and English and all of those types of things, but not about connecting with people really.
Right. And
Oh,
soon you just know how to do those things for some reason.
yeah.
They'll be like, oh, I just know how to date. I'm a professional. I know how to set up a profile. I know how to, show up in a relationship. But really, pretty much none of us know how to do those things, especially, our parents likely, if you're lucky, they're a good example. But most of us, since divorce rates are so high, likely come from divorced parents where you probably didn't have a good example of how to show up in love and in relationships. So,
Mhm.
if you're not talking about it with your friends or, your circles, then you're just going to have to do a lot of trial and error and you might end up needing someone to give you that little extra tools to connect better.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And have to do a whole lot of extra work along the way to make sure that it sticks, right?
Right. I mean, I kind of like say, having a matchmaker is kind of like, all the other things in life that you hire out. Maybe you hate cleaning your house, so you hire someone to do that, or you don't like mowing the lawns, you hire someone to do that. That's a very different level. But, in dating, people don't think that you could kind of outsource that a little bit and, have more time back in your day to do things you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that popped into my head when we were talking about it, or when you were talking about it, is like resume writers or people that help you, like job coaches or things like that, it's kind of a similar, I mean, your love life is a little bit more serious than finding a job, but I mean, I don't
Right.
think anybody bats an eye about thinking about, paying or working with somebody to zhuzh up their resume a little bit, or, help them find the right job opportunities.
Right. And people kind of brush it off when it's, your life partner. Hopefully you're with this person forever or, for a long time. That's arguably one of the most important relationships you'll have in your life. So, putting in the time yourself to really figure out what it is you're looking for and date more intentionally, or, hiring someone like myself to help you in that is,
Yeah.
honestly invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I jumped like 500 feet ahead, I think, but why, can we take a step back and hear kind of what's the state of affairs or the state of the union in dating right now? Like what's happening? Because I can imagine it's very different than it was pre-pandemic, very different. I mean, we're not out of
Yeah.
the pandemic yet, so that adds a whole layer of complexity, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pandemic has brought some very interesting changes to dating. I think there's definitely been some good, there's definitely been some not as good. One of the more interesting things that I've seen come out of this is there was a Match.com study that came out at the end of last year. They surveyed a whole, like, thousands of people asking, what is the biggest thing you're looking for? And they do the same survey every year. And the number one thing last year was actually emotional intelligence, which it's been physical attraction like forever. So the pandemic has definitely changed some people. I know there's a lot of people kind of reevaluating, their jobs, and people are quitting and starting their own businesses and becoming entrepreneurs. So I think there's this whole reevaluation of life and how people want to approach it. Um, so I like to think that there's some good that came out of all of this, that people are being a little less superficial and wanting that emotional intelligence in partner first. Obviously, you have to have physical attraction. You want to have sex with this person at some point. That is also the point of having a partner. Um, so, that has been, I think, a change for the better. And I think, in a way, it has also obviously made things more difficult because I'm even meeting people now that are like, I haven't really done anything social for 2 years. Maybe they haven't dated in longer. And, there's a lot of work that we have to do to kind of get them to a place where they feel really confident to start putting themselves out there and meet people. Because when you haven't really been socializing a whole lot in 2 years, um, that really impacts you. I mean, I've even noticed it myself. You know, I was that person who was out every night at some event and doing something, before the pandemic. But even this whole thing has made me like, honor my more introvert time. And I
Totally,
never
like a
thought
little
that would
awkward, right? Socially
yeah.
awkward, like gruel that's been lurking in the corners of your personality.
Right. Some people I'm like, have you talked to another human like in person in 2 years?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, that emotional intelligence is so huge. I mean, I've definitely felt that over the last couple of years, how important that is. Yeah.
Right. And I'm so glad that more people are thinking about that because, physical attraction will only get you so far. One of my pet peeves with both men and women is height. People can get so
Oh,
focused on, height, especially women, oh, he's got to be 6 feet and taller, or I won't talk to him or give him the time of day. Um, but, what if he's a total jerk and 6 feet tall? What if he has no goals in life and 6 feet tall? Like, this is a horrific gauge of whether someone can be a viable partner. So, in any way, if people are going away from the superficial, it makes me happy. So,
yeah. Yeah. Wow. And then, so you say that people are ready to work with you or to work with a matchmaker when they know what they want, when they've worked through their baggage from the past, and they've done the groundwork on self love. And I mean, those sound amazing. And why are those so important? Like, why is that the criteria? And kind of what happens when those things are missing?
right. I mean, number one is definitely knowing what you want. If people come to me and, someone's like, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I don't really know, I have no guide to set them up with anyone. So I can only imagine if they're out in the world trying to meet people, they have no sort of filter or way to discern between someone who could be a good match and someone who wouldn't be a good match. So they're going to waste their time with people who really aren't good. So important to know what you want. I always tell people, it's good to have your top three needs and then your top five wants. So the needs you would always want to see in a partner, and then the wants, they're not necessary, but obviously if they're there, like that might be something like, the wants, the five wants would be like, likes to hike because we're in Colorado and we see that a lot. That could be a want because it's a nice little cherry on top or something like that. Um, and then in terms of, self-love and knowing yourself, I was just talking to someone the other day about this, about how, post-divorce or post a long-term breakup, if you jump right back into dating, you're going to be attracting all the wrong people. Figure out those things that you love to do, date yourself, quote unquote, as they say, and, feel confident in yourself. So that way you're looking for someone who complements you rather than completes you. I think we get all these ideas from, rom-coms that we're supposed to have someone who completes me, who is my best friend. But really, you just want someone who complements you and you can bring out the best in one another. And you're both whole people. And then you can come together as whole people, not parts of a person trying to search for something you don't have in yourself in another person. That's when it can get real messy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love the way that you said that too, that you're searching for something else. And um I think that's I've done a lot of work in this category, and I feel like I read over and over and over again that that's the problem. You have these expectations, you're searching for these things in somebody else, and that's actually what causes arguments. That's what causes, resentment. That's what causes all of these things that end up leading to the end of relationships and all of this other, going back to, the what we talked or what I was talking about at the very beginning, that, they wreak havoc in relationships, but they also start to wreak havoc throughout, all of the other parts of your life too.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. As a, I own my own business too. If my personal life is in disarray, my business is going to suffer. Or, if I'm coming from a place of desperation in business, like kind of how people can come from a place of desperation in dating, you're going to attract the wrong clients or the wrong potential mates because you're coming from that place where you're not quite sure. You're not, you're just like, I just need someone. So, all those kind of ideas apply, even in hiring someone, it's kind of the same idea of, bringing someone into your life romantically. Obviously, hopefully you talk a little less business when you're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so you work with, or you work on setting up blind dates, but you also have this focus on live events. And I guess I'm curious, so people show up, I think there's a lot of doing a live event, a live dating event can bring, there can be a lot of anxiety that brings up. And I guess I'm curious, how are you able to make people feel comfortable in those situations? But also, like, how do you make sure that they're headed, towards the right people, that they're meeting the right people in those situations?
Yeah, the events can definitely be nerve wracking for people. There are a lot of people who never come to an event and they only do the dates. There are a lot of people who only do events, and never do a date. So it's kind of like however you feel most comfortable meeting people. Some people feel like it's more quote unquote organic. When you meet someone at an event, people are kind of obsessed with meeting organically. I could go on a whole rant on that. I'll save that for later.
Yeah, I mean, you can hold back.
I'll finish talking about the events that I'm
Yeah.
happy to. So yeah, we always try to have structure. I think if you have just kind of in any event, if you have just some open-ended kind of happy hour, that can be so intimidating. Like, okay, so I got to walk into a room of 100 people and just approach someone and say hi. What do I do? So we always try to have some kind of structure. Like, for example, speed dating is always a good one. It's kind of like swiping in real life. You sit down, you meet someone, you talk to them for 5 minutes, you like them, great. Talk to them later. You don't, okay, never speak to them again. So that's a good format. We'll do sporting events, we'll do workouts, anything and everything to just kind of get people, hopefully also moving in some way, getting some endorphins going, because, when you have that happening, you're probably going to have a good experience and connect with people better rather than if you're just like sitting and, not moving around as much. So,
Yeah,
for
I had a
Saturday, we
client
have,
once. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but
oh, no,
I
no,
had a
you're good.
client once that was like, she and her husband started running together or doing walks or something together. And she was like, I love it. She's like, I don't love running, but I love doing it with him because I feel like I can say anything to him at that moment. Like, we
Mm,
talk about such interesting things because their endorphins are going. So, I mean, that's like they're already
right.
in a committed relationship, but I can see how helpful that would be in a dating scenario.
Yeah, and that's also kind of my whole thought process. I know walking dates, came to be during the past couple years,
Yeah.
but they really stuck around, and I still set them up when the weather is nice because you do have that endorphin release, and you're automatically going to have a positive experience, even if you didn't connect with that person in a romantic way. So, if you're kind of weighing, date ideas and things like that, always go towards something where you're moving, even if it's just a walk around the park, be there for an hour. Do you feel like that person? And if you don't, move on. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And then so at these live events, are you like standing at the door being like, okay, yeah, you guys are a good match or you guys are not? Like, I guess, how do people avoid leading themselves astray?
Yeah, so at the events, there are obviously a lot of people that I know and have interviewed and vetted and everything, but there are also a lot of people that I don't know. So the people that I do know, I can at least, say, ooh, okay, you both, value these same things, you both kind of want these same things. Okay, you should meet. So I'm also there to kind of, mingle and introduce people and help facilitate that conversation. And I always tell people I'm kind of their safe space, or when my other matchmakers, that when they're like, I'm awkward and I don't know who to talk to now, just come talk to one of us and, we'll make life easy. Because those situations, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest people person ever, that can be a nerve wracking situation.
Yeah, yeah, totally. But on the
Mhm.
flip side, I can also see them being kind of exhilarating too. I mean, you go into a room, you start meeting people. That's why I was like, are you checking, like, are you approving these? Because I can see sometimes you get into a room and there's all of this energy and, you're talking to people and people are, interested in you. And like sometimes that is in and of itself attractive, right? But
Right.
not necessarily the choice you should be making.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story of at an event earlier this month. We have a database date night. So we have a database of like 900 single people that we've interviewed and background checked and all that. So we have a night every month they can come together and meet. And there was a man and a woman who really hit it off. They, stayed past the event and were talking and planned a date, for after the event. And, afterwards, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything because they really enjoyed each other. But they had almost a 20-year age difference
Oh my
of
gosh.
the woman being older. I mean, she looks amazing, so he obviously didn't know, and the guy being a lot younger. And they did go on the date, and the age difference is definitely apparent. But at the same time, it's all about putting yourself out there. And, who am I to say, no, don't go out. You guys had a great
Yeah.
conversation. I probably wouldn't have set that up if I saw it on paper. But when people meet and they have a good time, I always tell people this is all about just making new connections. So, maybe it's a friendship, maybe it's a romantic thing, maybe you do business together, maybe you just see each other at the park and wave and say hello. Like, this is all just kind of putting yourself out there. And of course, there's going to be relationships that don't work out because none of us have 100 partners. That would be insane to juggle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So your story, I guess it has me headed in the direction of, do you have like a favorite, like client success story, or I don't know, like the story that you tell all, I don't know, like your favorite story to tell about the work that you do?
Ooh, I have a good one that is like a realistic story. I have a few, I have one where it's like, I'm like, that's not going to happen to another person. But, we kind of started this podcast and you were like, what's your intention? I want to give people a little bit of hope if you're listening and you're single, or if you know someone single, that, there's multiple people out there for everyone. So I had a woman come to me who, wanted to do matchmaking. This was, I guess, right in the pandemic. And she only wanted to do virtual dates. She was, not feeling comfortable doing in-person dates, and nothing was clicking. And even kind of after like 3 or 4 virtual dates went well, like she still wasn't comfortable meeting in person. So we kind of had to like pause everything. And so for honestly like a year, until kind of people got vaccinated, we paused, didn't do anything. And when we met again, we're like, oh my God, it's been a year. Like, what have you been up to? And I was kind of looking through who could I introduce her to. And she was definitely feeling like, I'm hopeful, but also, I have no idea. Like, we'd started working together a year ago, and she hadn't met anyone. And I set her up on one date. It was good, but not great. Set her up on a second date with a different guy, and it went awesome. It was no like swept off your feet kind of thing. It was slow burn. They had a lot in common. They enjoyed hanging out together. It's been, I guess, almost a year now too, and they are moving in together, still enjoying getting to know each other. And, it's not some crazy Cinderella love story that we all kind of live for. But I want to tell this just for people to know that most relationships are not that exciting.
Yeah.
You meet someone and you're like, this person's cool. I want to know them more. And it hopefully just grows from there. And there aren't these like crazy high highs and super low lows. And when it is just stable and good, that's actually what we're going for.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the high highs and like the intense meetings, like those, I mean, they're enjoyable. They're very fun, but they don't, I mean, at least in my experience, they don't yeah, they're not sustainable. They're not a long-term option.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a story there from you. Now I want to
Oh my
know.
gosh. Yeah. I mean, I've been married before, and divorced. And I just am thinking about when I met my husband, my ex-husband, the first time. We had mutual friends in common, and,
Mm-hmm.
we ended up going on this date, and it was like just one thing after another was like magical, like, and magical, maybe maybe now that I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud, maybe in hindsight, we read it as magical and it wasn't, but like we got caught in this like
Yeah.
monsoon style rainstorm and had to walk home, in that we were drenched and laughing and having so much fun, and had just like watched this amazing sunset before then. And then I can't even remember now, like all of the things that unfolded in that evening, but we were like, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is so wild. And I mean,
Like a movie.
obviously, like a movie, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know that it was like foreshadowing what was about to happen, what would happen later on down the road, but like there was something like so powerful and exciting about that. But
Hmm.
when you're in that space, you kind of overlook some things. And I mean, he's a wonderful person, but like there wasn't like, obviously we were not a match long term. And I think, there was some of that was probably more obvious than we recognized initially early on, because we were so like, mesmerized, I guess.
Right. And it's like you think about that too. Every relationship is a learning experience. So, yes, there might be some good and there might be some things that you're like, okay, this is why it didn't work out. But, it's like every person you meet and you're with, whether it's a day or 30 years, it all kind of makes you the person who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, with a lot of people, obviously, who've been divorced and now are trying to get back into dating, and, it's tough to make that transition for sure. But to kind of think of it as like, okay, this made me who I am and added to my life. So, let's just take this new thing and run with it.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, we're all learning at different stages and at different spots, right?
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Just quick thing I want to mention
Yeah.
of we're always comparing our own dating journeys or maybe even our own business journeys to other people. Like, oh, that person started their business 3 years ago and they're already making, 7 figures and I'm not. Or, that person has been, dating for 3 days and they already found their soulmate. Truly everyone is on their own path. I think we all know that, but maybe a good reminder if you need to be
Yeah.
reminded.
Huge. I mean, anytime anybody can have that reminder, I think it's important for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
I feel like dating as a business owner too definitely has its challenges. And I think maybe this can apply to some of your audience of, people. I have a couple right now where, they're both entrepreneurs. One is like in a phase where his business is like they're trying to raise, millions of dollars and he's working all the time. And the other is, her business has been around for a while, she's not really having to work around the clock. And so it's really hard to balance their schedule. So communication is
Yeah.
everything. Two entrepreneurs together is an interesting combo.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it is tricky. But I mean, like, if, like you said, all the right things are in place in terms of like we've all done the work and we're showing up full, whole, and complete, or at least humble to our incompleteness, then,
Right.
those things we should be equipped to manage that.
I hope so. That is
Yeah.
definitely the goal.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for this. I mean, it's so fascinating. It's so interesting. I feel like this is a topic, and hopefully you feel like this every day in the work that you do, but I feel like it's a topic we could talk about forever. There's just so much depth there.
There's a lot. That's why I have a whole podcast all about it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
75
Okay. Tell
episodes and
us,
counting.
what's the name of your podcast?
It's called Ghosted. You can find it anywhere where you can listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. And just search Ghosted. You can also search my name, Abby Rosenblum. It will come up either way. It's a little ghost icon, text message bubble kind of thing. And we talk about anything dating related. We just had an episode about what's your purpose and how knowing that will help you, find a partner better. And people also tell some pretty funny ghost stories of when they got ghosted.
That's awesome. I love the name. It's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and totally fitting. Um, okay, and then so that's the podcast. So everybody
Yep.
can tune in and find you there. How can people work with you if they want to? I mean, they will
Yeah.
want to, I'm
So
sure, but
I hope so. And, also if you don't feel like you vibe with me, there are so many amazing matchmakers out there that we refer people back and forth all the time. Like, there's no way that we can all help all the single people in the world. So we actually need more matchmakers. But yeah, if people want to work with me, you can join our database. You can hire myself or my other matchmaker, Kendall, to be your matchmaker. We search for you. We set you up on a whole bunch of dates. We help you feel confident, anything and everything you might need to just feel awesome. And you can go to our website, which is right there, and you can book an intro call to talk to one of us and see if this is even remotely something that you might be interested in. And then we do a full interview and background check, personality test to really make sure that this is a good fit both ways. And yeah, so joining our database is just $250. And then if you want to work one-on-one, we personalize to everybody. So we can chat about that too. And I think that's probably about all people need to know. But just if you're looking for a serious relationship, that's really a bare minimum. So that would be the number one thing.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Abby, so much for being here, for sharing this wealth of knowledge that you have, and for giving us hope that, there is love out there to be had and truly enjoyed. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, it was.